there, my name's Gill Tiney. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Welcome today to Human Being Hidden Depths by Collaboration Global, and my name is Gill Tiney. I am excited today to interview, to have a natter with, to get into deep conversation with Niall Jones. Niall, welcome to our podcast.
Hi, great to be here.
Lovely. Well, the reason I'm so excited about this is because I know barely anything about you. Normally, when I have somebody on the podcast, we've had a long chat and I found out about their kids and their pets and da, da, da. And you've just joined the Collaboration Global community. And we've had some conversation, but, you know, basically it was me doing all the talking and you going, okay, I agree. Yeah, I like that. Can I join? And not a lot about, I've not really been able to pull too much out of who you are, what you're about, what is your why, what is your purpose, what is your mission, all of those kind of things that are fascinating to the people listening. I'll ask the question I ask all of our guests. What drew you to Collaboration Global? What made you join?
Yeah, I think we met many years ago at some kind of event, and I
Mm.
was interested and intrigued by what you're doing at that time, but I hadn't engaged with any of your events until for some reason I stumbled across something a few months ago, and thought, yeah, maybe it's a good time to come back around to connect with what you're doing. Came along to an event, and I was intrigued by the array of different people from around the world, with all their different quirks and individuality, and
Yeah,
thought, I'm coming back to this.
yeah,
That was it. I think that was it. I've moved around internationally and worked a lot outside the UK, and then made a number of I've done a number of initiatives linked to um, gathering spaces and collaboration. And yeah, I was intrigued and fascinated by where this might lead.
yeah. Do you know what? That's a very familiar theme. This intrigued, like, what on earth is that woman up to? What is she doing?
Mm.
Bringing all these
Yeah,
people together. What's the purpose behind it? And obviously, as you will learn and you will find out as the weeks and months progress, is multi-layered and multi-leveled. And we
mm,
have
mm,
lots of missions and lots of purposes within the members and then within the whole community at large. We've just literally talking just before we came on air that you've been working on yourself and you've now worked out what your mission is and what your purpose is around your business. Tell us the journey, your story of how you got to be part of the peer space and how the peer space was launched.
sure, sure. Okay, so I will just sort of run through some early decades fairly quickly. I From a mixed background, and I moved. I think of myself as a bit of a man of Wessex. I quite like thinking of the old historical.
Oh, I like
Sort of
that.
grew
Yeah.
up in Yeah, I grew up in this in a combination of Hampshire, Dorset, and Somerset,
Beautiful.
and yeah, nice areas. And but I saw some challenging times. My parents parents quite different backgrounds, so kind of quite a mixed background. My schooling was quite mixed. I
Mm.
ended up in different types of schooling, but uh, essentially, I saw my parents go through some challenges, quite big challenges. So
Mm.
what I would say, at 18, I went to uni, but I kind of felt like I was trying to run away, get away from. I think I realized this decades later,
Yeah.
and eventually, via a number of Southwest cities, ended up in the Southeast. This is my mid-20s, and very quickly realized this is where I should be here. Kind of,
Yeah.
oh, this is all making sense now. Met my Bulgarian, what became my Bulgarian wife, within a few months of arriving in the southeast,
Oh,
and we had two daughters before moving out to Eastern Europe. So I had a number of roles, sort of corporate marketing, corporate management consulting, and then startup ecosystem programs and in London, in and around London, and then part of the New Europe boom in Eastern Europe. So went
mm.
off to do this exciting New Europe startup venture, which was amazing for 3 years. And it was on the back of a sort of 15-year run out of uni, where I'd sort of started my young family, gone off to done these great jobs in London, then gone off to be part of that boom. And then that recession of that time, 2009, 2008, 2010,
Oh, I remember it well.
really,
Yep.
yeah, it really impacted us. So I then, in some ways, it's been more challenging since then.
Mm.
I came back to the UK initially about 12 years ago, and had some challenges reintegrating, and ended up doing my own things, consulting and my own ventures. My first venture around sort of collaborative, particularly ideation spaces,
Mm.
and I continued that back in Bulgaria in the couple of years before lockdown. And in those 2 years, I also started my first dinner spaces, and I became a performing musician. And
Ah,
this is sort of probably the deepest bit of personal development work I'd done at that time, was going off to do. I got sent off to do a chat to a charity that's like a men's charity for mental health, men's mental health,
brilliant.
and did went through this very intense 13 process weekend that sort
Mm.
of changed my life. And I became started running my own dinners and became a performing musician at age 45.
Excellent.
Um,
Never too
so I
late.
had this one. No, I had this wonderful 2 years up to lockdown where I got my international business dinner club kind of going in one of these emerging capital cities in Eastern Europe, Sofia. And
Mm.
in parallel, we got this mixed expat and Bulgarian band going that was like rocking the British Embassy a number of times. We
Wow.
were like playing all around the city, and of course, all stopped dead in its tracks in 2020. Was it 2020? Yeah,
Yeah.
when the world changed. Yeah.
Shut up shop, didn't it?
So
Yeah.
that original dinner club, I called it Executive Peer Spaces,
Right.
which ran for nearly 2 years, and real mixed bag of people. We carried on through lockdown, a couple of years on with doing virtual events, and in those 2 years, I came back to the UK
Mm.
second time. So this is now 3.5 years ago, and we incorporated the peer space as a company.
Mm.
Um, we've had quite a sabbatical there up until about a year ago, and we'd made the decision about a year ago to go back to physical events. So we are now nearly a year back into running in-person events. We've been running showcase speaker dinners. So speaker dinners is like the format that I work with a lot
Yeah.
in Surrey, particularly Surrey and London. And alongside that, we do a sort of white label service to create event series for companies and potentially local communities as well.
Yeah.
So that's a quick run through.
That, well, that gets us to today. Um, and I take my hat off to you because every time I've run an event in my various guises over the last sort of 20 years, it's hard work. It's really
Yeah, yeah,
just finding the right venue is half the battle,
yeah,
and to be able to get
yeah,
that for you, but then actually, getting people to show up and getting to host it and all of those other things,
yeah,
that's why a lot of people just, I mean, people say to me, "Oh, let's get Collaboration Global people together from all over the world," and I'm like, "Oh, uh,
mm,
that's hard work."
yeah,
So when you told me what you did, I'm like, "Oh, when you want to be a member, hey, this could
yeah,
happen. This might be something that
yeah,
what our members want is what I could have the energy to do because I'm not be doing it on my own."
yeah,
So I'm excited to have you in the
yeah. Be
community
great.
now. I think it's going to be
Thanks.
a good collaboration. Where did the name come from? The peer space,
Actually, I would say that going on this men's initiation weekend, it
right?
was such a powerful experience to be. I'm going to be honest. I felt like there was a lot of things about it that were very special, but this sort of first time I really felt like I was really asked and listened to. to ask how I
Um,
was, you know, how the world is just like flying along, and all the algorithms and the kind of computer says no,
yeah.
and this sort of loss of humanity that we've had, and this very, very human experience. And I
Mm,
thought this is a really, potentially not been really necessarily understood how I relate to other men, and this was the beginning of this sort of process of understanding that better.
mm,
What's ultimately a sort of very competitive world, I suppose. But I would say I'm having done stuff with things like Enneagram. I'm quite heart person, and artistic and musical, and some aspects of the way the world is can feel very
mm.
confrontational, competitive, and this was a very sort of healing kind of thing. So I thought, what a powerful peer group. It's like a peer group of
Oh, I see.
So when I started my dinner, I wasn't thinking about doing it gender exclusive. I wanted to speak it. I didn't really think about it being that way, but I just thought, what a powerful thing it is to have a peer. I know more generally how powerful peers are for all of us as we grow up. As we get to from a certain age onwards, I think it's mid-teens onwards, the people around you are just about become very important, if not the
Yeah.
most important thing.
Yeah.
Who you're navigating life with.
Yeah.
So I've always thought of the peer space as being, doesn't matter if you're 25, you made your first million, or you're just starting out at that age and you're in the room with a 55-year-old who's sort of close, getting late in their career.
Mm.
We're all on that life journey. So so
And wherever you are on that life journey, you've got something to contribute. What I
exactly.
find is I know some very wise sort of 12-year-olds, just like the
Yeah,
wisdom's like, have you been here before? How do you come out
yeah,
with stuff like that? It's just amazing. And then
yeah.
you talk to an 89-year-old, and that wisdom is this over the years, it's the same kind of intrinsic knowing. And it's like, where does
I
that come from?
I would say one of the massive shifts that we're seeing now is, you think about the old days, is like you work your way up the corporate structure.
Mm,
And in my working lifetime, the way that everything has gone so towards individuality, personal branding, that's exploded. And so
mm,
if you get your things like your personal branding right, whatever age you are, but if you're still like, it's just a different world from that kind of corporate, racing up the corporate ladder kind of world. It's just
yeah.
these two worlds seem to be they're running there, but trying to navigate them is not the easiest thing because the world's changing so fast.
And I think it's since lockdown and people have realized that loneliness is one of the biggest triggers of mental ill health. That I think this
Mm,
emerging thing that like men don't know how to talk to each other. You know,
yeah, yeah.
and it's so lovely to hear someone like you say that you've been on one of these retreats and you've done that work
Mm,
that was most profound for you and you've come out the other
yeah.
end. And you hear stories about, stories around the campfire and all these men weekend retreat things. I think it's so
Yeah.
essential for
Mm,
our world as women who are feeling vulnerable, who can't go out at night because of, fear of being attacked or fear of being bullied at work or whatever. It's understanding that once men start talking to each other in a compassionate way, in a
mm,
listening way, they can then see more clearly what we have been going through and they can be more compassionate to us. So then we don't have to stick up for ourselves as much, although we're very good at doing that. So when a man sees another man bully a woman or belittle her or
mm,
whatever, they can stand and go, "That's not nice. Why are you doing that?" And it's the same for each other
yeah.
because this has been um, an accepted way of, oh, that's just funny or that's for fun, of
Yeah.
teasing and taking the mickey out of each other, when actually, for the person it's happening to, it's not funny at all. And they're
No.
having to put a smile on. So there's this culture between the two where the women are kind of kind and the men are kind of brash. And I think
Yeah.
that's a sweeping statement. I get that. I know that that's a big sweeping statement,
Yeah.
but I think when you're talking about the things that you've been through and you can see a different way of being, that's part of the pivotal way of society changing
Yeah.
in order for us to
Definitely.
help each other. To
Definitely. Definitely. It's so many different levels to how interesting it's been in terms of what I've learned about myself and just looking after each other, and that kind of much more compassionate way of relating to each other. And then, as
Mm,
part of all of this, there's these women's groups running on the side. And then at certain moments we're trying to integrate the two worlds, like do more gender inclusive
Yeah.
facilitated spaces where everyone's kind of listening very carefully to each other and trying to help each other and do some healing processes. And it's really I just like my thing is this combination something like how you do good gathering spaces and maybe how you make them welcoming, like this combination of welcoming and gathering. And obviously the music is a very, very fun world, creating the
Mm.
musical spaces, and then the the peer spaces I do with the business dinners and even the local community dinners, it's more it's very gentle. It is kind of usually we're exploring an important topic, but
Mm.
we have like a decent thought leader, an expert, or a local hero speaker to make it like an interesting theme for the evening, from someone that's got a good story or they know their topic. And then it makes it a really, although there's some serious element to it, actually, the feedback I get is that people love it. Like
Yeah.
it's not too strong a word. Get very positive emotional feedback, and it
Yeah.
just there's a sort of beauty to it, a bit of a magic to it.
I think what we try and achieve in Collaboration Global as well is in a lot of spaces you go into, you feel like you have to be on. Hi, how are
Yeah,
you? This is my business. This is who I am. This is, and everything's
yeah,
fine. Everything's
yeah,
okay, even though you might have had the
mm,
most worst day. And yet, in a place where people can relax and be themselves
yeah,
and be authentic and just not bother about putting on that facade, that's when the
definitely.
true connection is going to come out. That's when they'll
Yeah,
be able to really hear that person sitting next to them about the story that they've had. And because there isn't any
yeah,
one-upmanship, there isn't any, I've got to think about my pitch, I've got to think about how I can get something from you. They're just
yeah.
purely seeing how they can maybe help each other rather than the
And
opposite.
and just going on to the peer thing, I think people just connect on. We can all sit in a room and say, "This is what I'm trying to sell you. That's what I'm trying to sell you. It's what I'm trying to say." But people really connect on passions and things they love. Like and that's how it really works. For me. So one thing is, for a dinner, you can have a topic that appeals to people, and then everyone's got that in common because they're coming together for the topic. But the
Mm,
other thing that we look to do is things like let's bring people that have something in common together. So often that's kind of okay, international business people in a big city. That's kind of okay, I get it. Like we're all from different places,
mm,
and
mm.
but for example, I would love to mix the way that I try to do like business dinners with the music. So could you do an event for musicians who are
Yeah,
all in business, and then they kind of have the thing in behind the fact they're trying to do business with each other is they all enjoy music. Yeah, for example, if they perform music,
yeah,
and that's the example of the sort of thing that I love to create. But I suppose my flagship event that I do is this what was called executive peer spaces is now sort of dugout dinners. Is this capital city kind of
mm,
dinner that's open to everyone, but it's sort of particularly open to the international community, business community. People that whether they're long term in the city or passing through or whatever it might be.
yeah. And I love this idea of having musicians that have a business because most musicians
Yeah,
need to have that they're not necessarily making it on their music alone and they need to have a side
yeah,
hustle. So
yeah,
do they know how to run a business? Probably not. But they're
yeah,
using their
yeah,
music. So one guy who's one of our members is Leo Saunders, who runs his business is Tune River, which is
yeah.
to do with creating music for an event in your life or for your business. So he created
Okay.
our theme tune for Collaboration Global,
Oh
which we
yeah,
play at every session. Um, and he's a jobbing musician. He'll go out there and he'll play for, do his gigs around the country, but he's got Tune River bubbling on under in the background,
yeah,
helping and supporting other musicians. I'll have to introduce you at some point. Um,
yeah, yeah,
I get where you say, but that to me is like, why has nobody thought of that before? That's just so
yeah,
one, it feels like it's common sense, but it's
yeah.
genius common sense, if you see what I mean.
I
It's like that
I
makes
think so.
it's such a good idea to bring
I
people together.
and you think about things like lockdown. I played guitar in my bedroom for 25 years, and
Yeah.
only 6 years ago did I start performing. And of
Wow.
course, I had to revert to that in lockdown. But as soon as I started performing, I don't have any problem talking about what a joy it is to practice with other musicians and then perform with an audience. It's like
Mhm.
each one adds a kind of level of high, and it's
Yeah.
such a natural high. It feels very, you're genuinely making people happy.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, you sing well," but never had a problem with anyone saying, "You should be doing this." And
Yeah.
that's always my fear. So I've encouraged a lot of people into music. And so when you think about something like musicians in business, it's never about who's good, who's not good, who's the best. It's just all of us on our journey because I've now been in two bands. I've done a lot of open micing. I'm on a journey in my music. There's always new songs to learn. I can always
Yeah.
improve my playing. I can always improve my singing,
Yeah.
and everyone's on their individual journeys. But it's a beautiful part of my life now, that I just that will always be part of my life going forwards. But it took so long for me to figure out.
It's interesting, isn't
So
it? So many people. Do you think it's the way they were taught when they were younger? I know my daughter, she enjoyed the piano. She liked playing the piano, but then she did an exam and she was horrified by how nervous and sick she felt about doing this exam. So I said, look, if you enjoy playing the piano, we'll carry on letting you have lessons so you can learn how to play more, but don't take any
mm,
tests, don't take any exams. So the teacher would
yeah,
say, oh, she could do grade 4, she could do grade 5. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. She's like, but yeah, but she'd be, no, just not doing that. She wants to
yeah,
enjoy it. She doesn't want to have any pressure. She just wants to be one with the piano. And she would play a lot when nobody else was there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it was just about her and the piano. And so in today's world, we need music, we need the arts in general to help us with our mental health. Because
yeah,
who
yeah,
doesn't get emotionally moved by music? Who doesn't get
definitely.
emotionally uplifted by a tune?
Mm,
Who doesn't get affected by a
mm,
memory that a piece of music can recreate for them?
yeah,
So important for all of us to access music in
really
different
is.
ways. How whether you're just listening to it and appreciating it, whether you're singing along and tapping your toes, or whether you're competent enough to play a ukulele and pluck
Yeah,
some chords out of it. It doesn't really matter. And I think it's
it,
such an important thing to bring music consistently to
yeah,
a group of people. So if you're bringing people together at an event and then you're adding in that music, it's
yeah.
like, what's not to like? I think it's
It's
such,
ritual, isn't it? And it's like it's part of the ecosystem of gathering spaces. Like it's
yeah.
sort of like you this. So if you said to me, "No, money's no object," what would you do with your life? I would just like go off around the world, uh, to look to sort of to meet people who
Yeah.
are looking after gathering spaces and just kind of like just a never-ending exploration of how to do gathering spaces well because it's just so fascinating. Like because we can all, it's very easy for us. I'm going to say it's easy for us if we have our health and to have a very solitary life. Right, we can go to the
Yeah.
shop, get our the food we need, go back and cook it. But this skill
Yeah.
of creating spaces for for people to come together in some way to either explore a topic or to heal or to have
Yeah.
fun. It's just such a fascinating. I absolutely believe, and I've done a couple of little bits of content around this, but I absolutely believe that sometimes they can work so well just through serendipity, and other times they can work so well through some conscious structure, conscious plan.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's fascinating, isn't it? Because it can make all the difference.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's my you use the phrase gathering spaces, and that just feels like you're going to come to a big hug, aren't you, with this
Yeah,
warmth that you're going to experience through a gathering space. And that's
yeah,
kind of my philosophy around collaboration is that you build and you create a team to collaborate, but that team becomes community. You get to know each other
mm,
really well, you get to support each other really well. And then by the end of that project, whatever that collaboration happens to have been, you're going to know each other so well. It's going to be a hug and
mm,
let's do this again and let's take it forward. And what else can we do? Because you're connected at a different level to just doing a job, just
yeah, yeah.
getting the job done. There have
Well,
been experiments as well out there how when people connect at a deeper level, like through a shared interest or a commonality or just the fact that you're another human being, let's do something for good, let's put
mm,
something good out there. It has this ability to release the genius that's within you, and some people go,
yeah,
oh, I'm not a genius, I'm no Einstein. No, everyone has got genius of some sort in them. It's just the problem is
mm,
most people think, oh, anyone can do that. Well, no, they
mm,
can't do it
mm,
in the same way that you do it because that is your thing.
mm,
That's why you are so
yeah,
good at it. You take it for granted. It's one of those things that
yeah,
you can do without even thinking about it. So for me, one of the things I
Yeah,
do, which I consider I've been told is my genius, is connecting people up. And I can't help
yeah,
myself. I can't stop it. So I was out for brunch with my daughter the other day, got chatting to the guy that owned the cafe, um, connected up with him, and my daughter was like, "Oh, everywhere we go, you've got to be helping people with the business cards and the connections." And I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah, but that's what I love doing. And if I can help someone that way, and
It's
put them in touch with the right people." Why would you not do it? So your genius, and
exactly.
that phrase is the gathering spaces. It's
Yeah,
facilitating and bringing people together, which
yeah,
is so needed in today's world.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
just
so
so
it.
gone.
I can't think of anything more rewarding to be part of as well, on both sides. You know, the mu music and the meal-based things,
Mm,
and you know, yeah, like a life work to kind of continually kind of try to understand it better, the ways you can do it, and
mm.
with and without curation. You know, obviously, sometimes you just need to kind of give the time and place. That's it. Everything else will fall into place. You know, but
Yeah. Did you know there's a story on one of Simon Sinek's podcasts, A Little Bit of Optimism, where there was a young girl that had been bullied at uni, and she'd been told that she wasn't wanted, and she was invited to a party that didn't exist, and she just felt really low. So she just put out onto the internet, "I'm going to be meeting at 10 a.m. at this park. I'm very lonely. If you're lonely too, why don't you come and join me?"
I
Well,
love it.
fast forward 6 months and it's a world movement. There are
Yeah,
parks all over
yeah,
the world that are doing this
yeah,
just because there are an
yeah,
awful lot of lonely people out there that need to make contact from,
yeah,
15-year-olds all the way through to, 95-year-olds. It's just crazy how people
yeah.
are doing that. I'm
I'm not
just going to
surprised.
pause here because somebody has just very kindly rung on my doorbell to sort out
No
my
worries.
boiler. So I'm going to just stop 1 second. And we're back in the room. I've got a nice young man who's sorting out my boiler for me. Thank you. Um, so, gathering spaces, Neil. Tell us more about where that kind of feeling came from.
So, what after this, I had this 6 years in Eastern Europe, which
Mm,
had kind of gone a little bit pear-shaped, somewhere in the middle. It started off as a wonderful joyride and kind of didn't go so well in the second half of that period.
right. Yeah.
So, in my first year back in the UK, I wasn't finding it very easy to
Mm,
reintegrate, and someone referred me to a dinner club in Bristol where I was living. I was living in that area, and I walked in the door, and as soon as I walked in, I just thought, "Thank goodness I found you." I really felt like that. And the guy had this, the leader had this sort of Cheshire cat grin, as if he was literally saying, "It's all right, we're all mad here." I literally, and I just became a. I went to that for 4 or 5 years, um, and just fell in love with the format. And all he actually did really was he brought people together, a lot of sort of, I'm going to say midlife people, consultants and entrepreneurs,
mm,
and he had a speaker, he had an expert on a topic in the room, and they
mm.
kind of led the evening, and he was there in the background, and I'd never been invited to a dinner like that before, at age sort of 40, and I just fell in love with the format, and here I am now, 100 plus of my own events. I've spotlighted 50 plus speakers, but with
Wow.
this huge 4 year gap around lockdown,
Yeah.
and yeah, like no looking back, right? Since I've done my own ones, it's just all joy. It's just yeah, it's been wonderful.
Can you look back and put your finger on why you felt that you didn't fit in?
That's a great question. I really like that question. Okay, I'm pretty sure it is around this strange experience I had as a teenager where I I kind of got into clever kid school, passed my 11 plus, went to grammar school. In hindsight, I didn't really like it,
Mm,
and we moved towns anyway as a result of what's going on in my family's life.
mm,
And then I went to a regular state comprehensive. Much much preferred it, much more inclusive environment.
mm,
But in the background to all of this, there was a little bit of a narrative because I was supposed to go to a private school, which I never went to. And I think even now, this whole array of different messages kind of create a little bit of confusion.
Yeah.
And because I sort of saw there was like it was quite difficult. It was quite challenging times for my parents and stuff through those school years. I,
Mm.
20, 30 years later, I realized I kind of did run away from all that. Kind of went off to the city and tried to. So not exactly an orphan of of it, but yeah, definitely mixed messages. So when I talk about it in the sort of light version, it's like I've got a mixed background. So
Right.
so don't talk to me about born and bred in this t city or which university. It's kind of like
Yeah.
I've moved around a lot.
Yeah.
I made up a bit as I've gone along. And here
It's
I am now.
interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it does have a profound effect on people. It's like a lot of our
Yeah,
veterans that I've met, and you talk to them, and because of the nature of their job in the military, they have lived in so many different places. They never get to put down
yeah,
roots. So there's this kind of
yeah,
feeling of, you know,
yeah,
not quite fitting in. It's that kind of thing.
yeah.
And one of our members, Dr. Lizzie Burnsall, she's a veteran, done all the tours, Afghanistan, you name it. And she doesn't, she says there's a difference between fitting in and belonging. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of
totally.
like, oh yeah, it does make a huge
I
difference, doesn't it?
I did a dinner about the na notion of being internationalized. That was the topic for the evening.
Oh wow.
Because we had a mixture of people that, like in Bulgaria, we had people that had been to the States and come back. While our guys had gone to the States and come back, and
Yeah.
then lots of other non-Bulgarian guys that were coming to the dinners. And one of the things I remember thinking was, you feel this kind of like I feel like Bulgaria is like a second home to me.
Yeah.
Like UK is my home country, but Bulgaria is like a second home. So I kind of feel like I belong in both. If
Yeah.
I'd added a lot of other countries, I don't know what it would have done to my brain. But I think once you've kind of left your home country and spent any significant time, so I spent about 10 years living in Bulgaria,
Mm.
there's a sort of feeling like home is definitely a little bit of has a different sense to it.
Yeah.
And you feel the pull to other places and other countries and the other countries you might have been part of. And at some level, it's almost like home geographically is wherever you are at that point, but
Yeah.
you have a slightly different feeling from if you just stayed in your home country. It definitely shifts things a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never lived abroad, obviously holidayed all over the place, but never lived anywhere for any significant period of time. But I consider home to be where my family are. So
Yeah,
long, and the best time for me is when they all come over, because obviously my daughters have left home now, and they're all under my roof, and I'm like, yes, I'm
yeah,
happy,
yeah,
content. That really does it.
absolutely.
Me and my husband have
Yeah,
been married like a gazillion years, and it's like when he's not around, I don't get homesick, but home doesn't feel as homely as it should in that sense.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's a bit like wealth. I've always considered wealth to be a state of mind, and I think
yeah,
home and belonging is a state of mind as well, and we can choose that state of mind. So even when we were kids and we had no money me and my sister never were made to feel that we were poor. Looking back, you can see all the signs that we were living
yeah,
hand to
yeah,
mouth, but we didn't sit there because my dad had the attitude of, yeah, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. Yeah, he never
yeah,
said no.
yeah,
He just, yeah, we'll see. Dad, can we have a holiday this year? Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
yeah.
Usually meant staying at Auntie Margaret's house because she lived about 20 miles from the seaside, close enough. It was that sort
Mm,
of, and while she was on holiday herself, she was having a proper holiday, and we were going back to her house. So, it's a state of mind, and when you kind of have that a feeling of home within you and a feeling of wealth within you, that feeds into an abundant mindset, an abundant space where there's enough to go around. We're all fine. We'll
yeah.
work it out. We'll find a solution. That problem, that relationship that's not working, let's see if we can find a way forward, find a way through. Agree to
Mm,
disagree. There's always another way of looking at things. And I think when you have looked at your life and gone, huh, so that's why I felt like that. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I
mm,
get it now. And then you can package that up and then move on to the next thing and open
yeah,
yourself even more to new experiences. So the experiences that you have had, many people would be
Yeah.
envious of like, oh, he's lived abroad for 10 years. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Mm.
And yet you've gone, oh yeah, I
It
still
was. It
feel like
was.
sitting in. Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing as well. I mean, I would no regrets in a way, but it was
Mm,
also in other ways it was kind of definitely just some element of disorientation. Um, and I was going to say, just echoing what you're saying, I was going to say, obviously, people need people. Like, we need to find our people, don't we? Find our
yeah.
people, to some extent, find our place.
Yeah.
But the people, I think, are more important than the place in many ways.
Yeah.
And I had my family unit, um, and but over and above family, in the music, it's kind of like I've been in a couple of bands. That's like a kind of definite little community.
Yeah.
And then I mean, obviously, I'm business now with business partners, but with the peer-to-peer stuff, it's kind of well, we're I mean, being part of the international business community in a big city, that feels like okay, the people that I'm able to gather in this moment, and then but doing that for a company, um, I definitely think it's big business. You know, it's big business. If you can do getting your people that are around your business, maybe the key people, stakeholders, looking after them well, creating good
Mm,
welcoming spaces, it's very good for business to do that well. And I know a lot of big companies obviously get this.
mm,
Um, so I mean, there's a kind of really serious because I'm very interested in the local community side of it. Um, in terms of, you know, running dinners just for local communities in general, but there's a very serious business side to it as well if you can do it well.
yeah. Well, this is what I was thinking. It reminded me of a story of Daniel Priestley, you might have come across. He runs the didnt organization. And he tells
Yeah.
the story of how he came from Australia, having been quite successful over there, and kind of thought, can I
Mm.
do it again in London? So he came over
Yeah.
with his suitcase and his credit card, and he had a big dinner. The first time with sort of the 12 people that he knew in London.
Mm.
He
Mm.
invited, I think there's about four people he knew, and he asked them to bring other people. And basically he used it as his first pitch. He put it
Yeah.
out there
Yeah.
to what he was trying to do, and he got his investors at that meal. But he said he needed a
Yeah.
good restaurant, a private room, good food, camaraderie, people that he
Mm.
knew, people that he didn't know. For business, those kind of gatherings, that's where a lot of the business will be done. It's the same as a golf course. It's the original networking space,
Definitely.
isn't it, where you do it.
Definitely. I definitely think it's very like I see the speaker having a speaker at dinner like the golf round. It's kind of
Yeah.
like you'll have the thing. There's a thing that is gives you a bit of a focus,
Mhm.
which isn't about the business doing business. So a combination of a speaker and a lot of opportunities for people to kind of to be seen and heard,
Yeah.
and a nice dinner and setting.
Yeah.
It's kind of a magic to it. Yeah,
Why not? Why not indeed? Yeah. Oh, there's already, let me just write this down. There's stuff I want to talk to you about off of this conversation. I'm
yeah.
not going to share this with our
I'm
audience
ready.
today.
I'm ready.
Um, so knowing that you're bringing people together, which I think is beautiful, what would you say your purpose is, having gone through all that learning yourself and those experiences of living abroad? Have you got a specific purpose that you adhere to?
I'm gonna say championing welcoming spaces, because there's a message there about the way that we can create super simple welcoming spaces without spending a single pound
Yeah.
around our own, you know, whether it's our family dinner table. I've got a very interested in doing something with pubs. I want to
Ah,
go out and do a big road show with pubs. Yeah, I've got a whole idea around doing pub parties and things and doing a sort of road show for that because
that's,
it's just they're such a beautiful institution
yeah.
and they're sort of just there in every community.
And the
And
too many are closing down, aren't they? That's was sad as well, isn't it?
yeah, and I think, you know, a welcoming space to me is so it's I mean, it's just one word, it's sharing. It's having this opportunity with a little bit of light curation because I like doing it's not too heavy, but it's like a light touch kind of a lot about the hospitality, but a little bit of curation,
Mm,
but not 100% curation, you know, so but just this sort of light, if you make it about like what makes a welcoming space to me is like to make it about the people in the space.
mm,
Because I think, you know, if I look in general there's a lot of spaces that are broadcasting spaces. So you have a big figure that's I'm
Mm,
the one talking to the many, everyone else has got to listen. You know? So to make these spaces that are a bit more kind of interactive and about the people in the room, but still perhaps to have a main focus, this combination is really
mm.
nice. So just at the family dinner table to create a space that's about making sure everyone's heard. You know, if you think about it versus the old kind of Victorian, whatever, it seems to be the man at the end of the table. You know, don't speak until you're spoken to. So
Yeah.
all this sort of madness of those times, and like you know, and or imposing your will on your kids and stuff. Like the very opposite of that. So big fan of Ken Robinson and his whole thing of getting listening to what your kids you know or to be kids or adults like what is it in their behavior or actions, what is it they're showing about what they need or what they actually want to be doing with their lives? You know, it's if we can do that stuff better, um,
I think you're
the world would
right.
be a better place.
Yeah, I think so that communication is so, and like you say, Ken Robinson had it sus, didn't he, in his talks? If anyone hasn't heard of Ken Robinson, sadly no
Yeah,
longer with us, but a
yeah,
TEDx, not TED, a TED talk. Go to TED.com, type in Ken Robinson. He talks about education and what's failing in our education system
mm,
today. And I think so many times I go out in the conversation and sit around a table with people, and people talk over you. And it's like,
yeah,
I was actually I was talking then. Can you just let me
mm,
finish my sentence? That would be nice.
yeah,
And that's the way a lot of people do talk. Or now they've gone the opposite way and they sit with their phones and they're talking to the person somewhere else, not that far away, on their
yeah,
iPhone. So it's putting the gadgets down and actually learning how to listen to understand what the person is saying rather than, oh, yeah, I know what you mean, before they've even finished what they're saying. And then they try and top you with
absolutely,
the story. Yeah. It is a
yeah,
problem of this age, I think. Communication is not, and how people communicate is very evident when you look at Twitter, when people will
mm,
launch into a diatribe of abuse at somebody. And I saw this the other day. There were two statements about the protests, and they more or less said the same thing. But one person's following went boof and
mm,
lambasted them and said, "How dare you?" And the other person, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's a really good idea. That's a really good thought." And I'm like, they're saying the same thing. Why are they getting this
mm,
difference of communication coming through? And
mm,
what's weird is that people feel it's okay to criticize another person without
mm,
having met them or know them or have permission to do so. And,
mm,
and that's the world that we're living in. So when you can bring people together in a gathering space, a welcoming space,
mm,
and teach them those skills, even, albeit you're not going to tell them these are the rules at this table, but you're going to demonstrate this is how we do things here,
yeah.
then you're giving a perfect example of how they can take that and use it
And,
in their businesses and use it
uh,
at home.
exactly. And I really want to say it's like in terms of what I'm striving for, what I'm trying to champion, it's the idea of a perfect space or a perfect peer space. But this
Mm,
is closely related to like a perfect day. You know, like
yeah.
if you can create more perfect spaces, perfect days, you know, because over a day you might want to have a number of different kinds of gatherings. You know, you might have some time on your own as well.
Mm,
But this is fascinating. It's a fascinating world, right? Trying to create environments that are delivering that. You know,
yeah. And that perfect day is interesting because I often say to my clients, what does your perfect day look like? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, okay, well, just describe it. Not necessarily a day on holiday, but a day at home that you would love to live again and again and again because it's
yeah,
perfect. And it's like, well, I'd like to maybe get a new client. Like to maybe do this, da, 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 da. And when they actually write it down, I say, right now, look back over the last month. How many perfect days did you have? And they're like, huh, actually.
yeah,
But they
yeah,
hadn't realized it because they're so busy looking on to the next day and the next day and the next day. I said, if that's 50% of your month, that's not a bad month, is it? You're having a really good time. If you get one day a month and you go, that was my best day, well, how do you replicate that? What did you do to get that day to be your perfect day?
yeah,
And then see what you can do to make it to happen again and again and again. Now, obviously, you're
yeah.
never going to have a perfect day every day, but who you are in the moment can be the perfect person in as much as You don't have to react to people in the way that you might have reacted before. You don't have to think poorly of somebody and make meaning of a situation that doesn't actually exist. It's knowing who
Yeah.
you are and being connected to who you are is really the first step towards creating your perfect anything, your perfect gathering, your perfect dinner party, your perfect barbecue,
If
your perfect business day.
if I was saying to you, because I sort of see we do the stuff with the lunches. I don't really like breakfast so much, but lunches and dinners, I'd be like, I'd say to you, we could talk about doing a lunch or a dinner, collaboration global lunch dinner. But then the next level is if you think about collaboration being like almost like the opposite of fighting each other for resources, and it's kind of how can we work together to create a perfect collaboration global day? You know,
Mm,
because that stuff is like I bet you'll have a lot of the right people in the room to make that to make that happen really well. And then
yeah,
I'm sure you'd be very good at learning how to do another day even better. You know, so,
yeah,
and it's like, oh, that's kind of exciting. That feels really
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, there's so much potential along the way, isn't there? Let me just, I'm
Yeah.
going to pinch a question from Simon Sinek that I do mostly for my guests. Excuse me. Um, Take yourself back to when you were maybe 6 or 7, and you're
Mhm.
playing and you're having your perfect day at that age. What's the sort of thing that you used to enjoy doing? What's a good memory that you can call
Mm.
back that was you having a good time?
I spent almost from age school, all my school years, I was within a few hundred yards of fields.
Wow.
So I had a very kind of wild childhood in the sense that with the friends, you know, even from those early years right through even yeah, certainly early teens, kind of going out into the fields and kind of wandering and roaming and possibly kicking a football around, but being able to kind of walk long distances away from home and
Mm,
doing kind of silly army games or riding a bike, walking up a hill and watching the planes. There's a nearby air base and watching the planes from the top of the hill for hours.
yeah.
And yeah, that feeling of being very free to kind of roam quite wild, which I know is something I've taken that feeling of being able to walk up a hill, you know, take a breath, and I feel like it's something that really is important thing for me.
Yeah.
So
It's good for your mental health, isn't it? One, being outdoors anyway, but two, having that sense of freedom and like
yeah,
it kind of makes you feel invincible to a certain extent, doesn't it? It's like I could do
yeah,
anything. I'm free. Oh, what lovely memory. And
absolutely,
I think that that plays into where you are with your purpose because you want to make welcoming spaces. And
mm,
that sense of freedom means that you're not worried about who's coming to your spaces. You're worried about
yeah,
that they have to be welcoming. Let's bring
yeah,
people together, make them welcoming. So it's not considering like this type of person or that type of person, or they would be good or they would be bad. It's like let's bring the people together and make it a welcoming space,
definitely.
and then it will work because of what you've created in that culture and that ambience for that
It
event.
it's kind of interesting how I haven't changed very much the way that we do it, and
Mm,
but I'm open to that, and it's because I think when I started, I was worried about people wouldn't like the way that it's been done, or they would be challenging, you know, the way that I'm approaching it. But
mm,
it hasn't really been like that at all. It's just kind of like I was already mid-40s when I started, so I was sort of like I think this would work, this combination, and I pretty much stuck with that, and it kind of just does seem to work quite well.
good, good.
So it's
If
like
if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's what they say, isn't it?
it does interest me though. That's sort of like how do you spend a decent 2 or 3 hours together around a hospitality sort of centered moment, and people that may or may not know each other. So you've got to be open to that. How do you make it into a something that people put a tick against at the end? You know,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me. Always open to how to do it better.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, in an ideal world, what's your favorite welcoming space? If you were to be the participant, what would you enjoy most?
Yeah. I mean, it's a sort of a bit of a heat between the share space and what I'll call the storm space. But the thing about the share space is very gentle, and it
Mm,
is a bit like the healing, and it could be over dinner, it could be around the fireplace. You know, it's kind of like. Um, and it could be words or it could be music, right? Of course, this is
Mm.
nice, like a kind of jam around the fireplace.
Yeah.
But the thing about Storm, the reason I put so much energy into the masterminding stuff is it's like you can in my opinion, with the right structure, the right mentality, you can like fix everyone's problems like really fast. It's like sharp end stuff, but it's
Mm.
if you really get it and you do it well, it's not very complicated. People don't do it regularly. People sit on the train like zombies, and but
Yeah.
like you can actually achieve so much. I think it's sort of 5 to 50 people. Or if you have the right people around you, you can just solve everyone's problems like every day, like within sort of 15 minutes if you just organize in that way. But I
Yeah.
know the world's not like that, but it is exciting. It's very magical, a bit like the dinners. The speaker dinner format is like a magic. This kind of like rapid masterminding thing is really interesting as well. It's kind of like another kind of magic. But
Mm.
so yeah, very different vibes, but one
And I
is
think you've come
oh,
in on a
I feel
gone.
no, I'm saying that the sharing, a more sort of sharing kind of speaker space. It's very kind of like sitting back in a comfortable chair.
Yeah.
And the storming thing is like the brain is flying, and it's like, whoa, we can solve everyone's problems here now in this moment. Like
I love
it's kind
that.
of crazy, but
Yeah.
it's quite serious. But
Yeah.
actually, it's not very complicated. So they're like a bit of a dead heat, but they're so different, and you know.
Beautiful.
But I would play. But obviously, if I could just wave a wand, I'd just be playing music all day. Obviously,
Brilliant.
obviously,
I think that's the best. And I think you're coming at this now at a pivotal time when people do realize that to feel good about themselves, to feel good about their business, there is some collaboration that's required, and they can be supported in these kind of arenas and these kind of spaces. So it's just trying
yeah,
stuff out. And if you've never tried a kind of gathering space like this, or a business dinner like this, it's another way to
yeah.
go. No, for sure. Um, Niall, sorry. I look at
So
your name and I see Neil, and I should be saying
yeah,
Niall. Sorry.
that's fun.
My brain doesn't work very well sometimes. Um, if people want to hear your music, have you got it recorded anywhere where they could go and listen?
Uh, I have got it a little bit in some places. Um, if you really wanted to just see a big download of all the things I've been doing, I've got a TikTok. I've done most of my music on TikTok, but I've got a couple of things recorded as well. So I think if you look up my name, Niall Jones, on TikTok, it's probably the easiest way.
Okay.
And there's a few YouTube things. Oh, the band I've been in the last couple of years, last year or so, is called Out to Lunch. So you can find us on I think we're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube.
And where do you normally
So
gig?
we've been gigging around Hampshire and Surrey.
Okay.
So yeah.
I shall come and find you
It's-
then. That sounds good.
Oh, we're gigging on Saturday. We got one on Saturday
Have
in
you
Hampshire.
in
Yeah,
Hampshire?
yeah,
Right. Okay. I will,
yeah,
we'll drop some details down into the YouTube so if
yeah.
people can find you on
It's
the end
fun.
of the podcast. Also, if people wanted to contact you directly about arranging one of these wonderful events that you do,
Yeah.
what's the easiest way for them to get hold of you?
So the website is www.thepeerspace.com. My email, Niall, Niall, at thepeerspace.com. And we're probably most active on LinkedIn. So we're LinkedIn and Instagram, but LinkedIn we're very active. So
Brilliant.
you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, and now as a member of Collaboration Global, you can also bump into Niall at one of our CoGlow sessions. We now host them on a the second Thursday of the month and the last Tuesday of the month. So if you just go to collaborationglobal.org and you can book there, or you can go to Eventbrite and search for Collaboration Global and you'll find us, and you can book that and come along to one of our Zoom events online. Hopefully, very soon we'll be having them in person as well because of Niall. But you might bump into him at one of our online sessions as well and have a chat there. Thank you so much, Niall. It's just so much. I love the fact that you're talking about welcoming spaces, you're talking about gatherings, you're talking about bringing people together. That's just music to my ears. And I think it fits so well with what Collaboration Global are doing. And I think it's at a time in our history when we need that more than ever. So I think hopefully over the next coming years, you're going to be a very busy man getting all these organized for lots of other companies
And
and businesses as well. Thank you for
um,
joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
thanks very much. It's great.
You're welcome.